Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of the Diverse Stars podcast third season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. This is an amazing episode because Soo Lee boards the mothership to discuss Thundercats Cheetara from Dynamite Entertainment. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Miss Lee. Thank you so much for coming to Diverse Stars podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Totally my pleasure. So I always start with a question of inspiration. What inspired your love for comics and who your earliest influences?
Oh boy. Batman, I feel like is a pretty good answer because a lot of people's, passion. I used to read a lot of manga, so it really is like a mix of both Western and Eastern influences. And some of my favorite artists, like I love Yoshitaka Amano, Sergio Topi, Mobius, Frank Quitely, just classics like that, really.
So when you say you're a fan of both more East and West comic books, what is it? Do you notice that maybe is similar in both, or what is also done distinctly in both that both has its own value?
Yeah, I feel like, there's a lot more limits to uh, Western comics. I feel like not as much anymore, but it is like when I say limits, I mean in terms of a book run, right?
Mm,
There's only like a very specific limit in how many chapters or issues or whatever, right? But for manga, it can go on for a long time, for as long as the story needs to be told, right?
mm.
I don't know if it's changed now, but it's usually more kind of like allows you to keep going. I guess it depends on what project it is, but that's the limit between those two. So you in Western comics you kind of have to cut to the chase, whereas in manga or like any Eastern comic, you can like slow down a little bit, and there's a lot more fluff, right?
Mm.
Whether it be good or bad, there's a lot more fluff in the books. I actually really like.
So as a writer, do you feel more influenced of Western comics or Eastern comics?
Oh gosh. As a writer, I'm just starting out to do writing more seriously, so I don't really have a good answer there. I watch a lot of movies and TVs and TV shows and try to not emulate, but it's the best way to figure out dialogue that's made up, right?
Mm.
I can hear it. I'm like, okay, does that sound natural? Because when you listen to it, you can tell if it's natural or not. And so I try to use that in my mind when I'm writing. But I try not to read other people's writing so I can so like I'm worried I might take something or maybe too close influence, right? And so I want to avoid that. Not that I'm saying that there are bad writers or anything that I know of, but like I just don't want to have any writing tainted in terms of comics. But with movies and TVs, it allows me to like listen to how a conversation flows better, and like what the personality of someone is as their speech,
Well, you're currently the writer or going to be the writer of Thundercats Cheetara, which everyone knows from Thundercats. It's was a very great 1980s cartoon.
Yes.
It's a very good comic book series right now by Declan Shalvey as well. So when you're writing something like Thundercats Cheetara, are you listening, watching the cartoon, trying to get the voice? Are you trying to get it from Declan Shalvey's voice, or you're watching one of the other Thundercats cartoons that have come out? What's been your way of finding the voice of Cheetara?
So we're only allowed to pretend like the 80s cartoon exists, right? So that's my number one staple. And yes, I have rewatched the cartoons, and then I specifically would like listen to the dialogue in the characters and try to keep that as close as possible. Had a meeting with Declan and our editor to like make sure certain terms and certain verbiage is like consistent, so I'm not like throwing off the readers,
Hmm.
and keeping it like flow a little bit better. It's not the same, but I want them to like talk as close to as possible. um yeah, and then like just using a lot of source material to make sure that like I'm making the story up, but I'm not making up how they sound because that already exists.
Right.
So I wanted to keep as true as possible. It's probably not perfect, but as close to it as possible.
Well, like I said, since you're building off the Declan Shalvey's great run so far, and you said you had discussions with them. So, kind of how much did he reveal about where he's going? How much room did you have to do what you want to do? And when you're thinking about your the Cheetara comic, I'm going to say it wrong probably 1,000 more times. The Cheetara
You're
comic
fine.
book, were you told to drop certain Easter eggs that he's going to
Mm.
then be picking up? So you got to catch me up on what the conversation were like between you and him.
Well, I can't tell you everything or because that's major spoilers, but um we're just talking more about I do know what's going to happen, by the way, but because I'm, privy to that information of his story, but um there's not a lot of similarities. It's a prelude, it's my own story, it's the character's own story, so it does not tie anything at all into what then Drew is working on now. Um, but there are things that we did have a conversation about because I was like, oh, is this consistent with that? And then we had a whole back and forth about how we can keep it more consistent and stuff. And yes, I do try to like I don't know if I would consider it an Easter egg, but I do want to drop little hints of where things already have been going with the original Thundercats series. And I don't know what Declan's gonna do about Cheetara. We'll see. That's his boat and he's steering it. So
So one interesting thing, I'm thinking back in my memory of my childhood, which is going back a long ways. I'm old. And I'm thinking about the Thundercats cartoon, and I'm thinking about what I remember of anything they mentioned. I don't recall a backstory of Cheetara ever really being given at all. Am
yeah,
I
you're
correct on
right.
that?
You're absolutely correct. So that's why it's kind of a clean slate. I'm kind of doing whatever I want, um, in as much as I can because it is there's not much. Chitara's kind of like an unspoken hero or unsung
Mhm.
hero.
So, and also, since we're going back to Thundera, another place that has been, I mean, it's been explored a little bit. You get some images of it, but how it actually functioned, how the Thundercats existed on Thundera isn't clear either. I mean, we don't know how the hierarchy works. We don't know what kind of systems they were living under, as far as I can recall. I don't remember any real dive into the cultural life of Thundercats. I mean, it was a kids show, so I'm surprised. I'm sure that wasn't a major of import to them back then. So when you're writing Cheetara in that world, because once again, it's a prelude before Thundera explodes. Um, I mean, were there rules? Were there discussion of how things are supposed to act and look and feel? And how much of that did you decide? This is my mark. This is what Mistake Society was like.
It's like 80% of that. My mark, I can do whatever I want because there's no real backstory. We don't know what happened to Thundera before episode one of, Thundercats, right? So I'm kind of like, okay, well, I can kind of do what I want. But there are episodes that touch upon what could have happened. And I'm just kind of like going backwards and trying to like, put the pieces together of the puzzle of what could have happened, and then also giving Chitara a bigger and more main role that I don't
Hmm.
think people are going to expect. But to me, it makes sense, because I am creating the story. But hopefully people enjoy that. But yeah, it is a mix of like, a sandbox. Like, here you go, have fun, but also, I want to make sure it reads like Thundercats.
Is there a lot of pressure in being the architect of the world of Thundera?
Yes, because, again, I'm making it up. If I do it right, people will love it. If I do it wrong, people will hate it. But I suppose that's all of comics, right? So the nice that I've been dealing with that my entire career. But the bad thing is that, like, there's a little bit of a pressure, on certain IPs, right?
Yeah.
And how much people love a certain character or, the franchise. So that's a bit of a stress. Saw issue one though. I'm super excited for it to come out because I think it looks great. Everybody who's seen it loved it so far. So I'm I'm nervous, but I'm kind of like, if not for nothing, it looks fantastic. So Dominico saved me. If anything, the art looks great.
So yes, I mean that's another great question. With you and the artist, because you and the artist also have to create a visual language for the world as well.
Hmm.
So as the architect, creating Thundera basically for the first time, Was there what were the conversations like on what the world was going to look like? Because I imagine another question is culturally, like, or how technology, like how far advanced are they going to be? How far advanced is society going to be? So what were those conversations like, and how were you able to verbalize how you saw this society working?
Yeah, I explained, I mean, I sent whenever I was writing scripts for Dominico, I made notes of like the page is going to be about anyway. So that's like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, page one is about this. So, so I'm preparing him, right?
Hmm.
And then, I send him references, lots of references to be like, this is what I want this to look like. This is the influence I want. This is the style I want this in. And then also like, but keeping true to the old Thundercat stuff. So I did send him Thundercats references as well. Um, but pretty much I kind of let him, I just said, here are the vibes, right? And then go with it, whatever looks good.
Hmm.
And besides, he already came out with like the designs, and I was like, oh, this is great already. Like I love the way this is like looks. So I kind of like vibe off that, and then like kept going with it. I was like, I think this is great. It works because in the original series, it kind of reads like that as well. So let's go. And in terms of technology, in my mind, well, if you watch the first episode of Thundercats,
Hmm.
they're flying out of a ship that's like really high tech. So I imagine they're like an advanced species way before, like way after humans or something, or way before humans, whatever. But I imagine that they always had like they were always advanced, and
Hmm.
that's where we start off. They're not like, like slowly building stuff. No, they're an established city, people, etc.
Now, I think the other thing that a lot of people have questions about, again, I don't think it's been explored, is Cheetara's speed, super speed. I
Mm.
mean, is it just normal for the Thundercats to have sort of powers? Is she a mutant? Did she get the powers somehow? I imagine you're the first one to really answer the question of, is this just her?
No, it's not just her. I mean, I guess I think it would have been way harder if it was just her, because then I'm like scrapping everything, right? So having some characters come back, I'm not going to say who or what, but showing some of the characters, I think, help identify who they were before episode one, and why it was those people in episode one. And I'm kind of just explaining like, okay, let's catch speed why one happened at all.
Hmm.
Okay. And if you don't remember it, you should go watch the first episode again. But I based off a lot of my story about before that. And that makes sense because the entire show is pretty much just like, this happened, boom. Now we're gonna go into like a new adventure action. We don't really know who they are or what happened. And I like that mysticism of, they just are these people. They're like super smarts, they're superheroes, but also like super high advanced technology for some reason. And I think you don't need to explain that, because they just are. They're just like aliens, right? They're these cool aliens who are like saving the universe, and that's it. Now, there is something else that I think is important to Chitara's lore that hasn't been talked about, and that I kind of explain what that is. It, I know that's very vague, but I do need you to read it, because if I say it now, it's a spoiler. There's no
Well,
point.
well, like I said, it's there's so many things. I mean, honestly, this is definitely an '80s cartoon where you kind of just have to buy into things just kind of happen the way they have. I mean,
Yeah.
sort of like Transformers, they crash on a planet and their ship somehow was not seen for 65 million years or some crazy numbers. Like, all right, whatever, it's fine. And Thundercats kind of went the same way. They're there, the Thundercats, they land on the planet, just enjoy the ride. But there's but you do have to think. I mean, she's on the ship escaping with the leader of the Thundercats, the the boy prince in a way who's going to end up being the next leader. I know you mentioned that I believe in the solicit that she's a noblewoman on Thundera. How does that all connect? I mean, is that because that's the reason why she makes it onto this ship that is a little special? I mean, it's not like they were peasants on this ship.
I think I do go into it a bit. When I say noble, I don't mean in terms of royalty. I think there's definitely a certain class of Thundercats, or like Thunderans, right? So she falls into that class, and then I kind of explain why she falls into that class, pretty much. Um, Again, it's spoilers, but they are kind of like the best of the best. They are the cream of the crop, right?
Hmm. So one other thing I'm gonna throw out there, and once you feel free to dance around it.
Sure.
You said this in the solicits. It says that I said you, but it's solicits say this. The title suggests that that she's harboring secrets. Now,
Yes,
you able to dive a
that's
little
the
bit into
thing
the
that I've
nature?
been.
Like are these like secrets of like she did something she shouldn't be doing? It's these secret of power. Like, are you able to dive a little bit into what the nature of these secrets are?
No, that's the spoiler. See, it really is like, layers of secrets that, it's secrets for us, not really, right? But secrets for her. I just don't want to spoil anything, and then, you just have to read and find out.
Can I poke one more time at it? I'm gonna poke one more time. Um, would the secrets be resolved within your story, or are these consequences going to carry over to the main title?
Oh, I don't know about the latter part actually, but secrets that establish her for sure, and where we end up.
Now, you seemed to hint that we're going to be seeing some other Thundercat characters in the series. Is that correct?
Yes,
Are they major players or are they part-time players?
both.
Okay. Ones that may or may not be still with us when the show starts, or ones that are main characters from the show.
Yes to both.
Okay, very cool.
Now,
Um,
who and how big and small, who knows?
Now, one other thing that's kind of important too that I'm curious about, because obviously this is a book. You have protagonist, you have an antagonist. It's just how these things work. It can't be Mumra, who's the standard, because he's not there. I'm pretty
Nope.
sure the mutants don't show up immediately in or not part of the planet. They arrive at the planet unless I'm remembering incorrectly how this all works. Can you give us a little insight on who the antagonist of the story is going to be?
Um, it is an outside force, but it's also a little bit of. I'm gonna throw this out there because I want people to. I want to throw people off. The call is it calling the it's calling inside the house and also outside forces. Now, what does that mean, right? Well,
Because I mean, one thing that's I think tricky always about prequels is that you're trying to build tension in a character
yeah,
that we already know what happens.
yes,
So
exactly.
how are you kind of building in that kind of tension on what's going to happen to her or what she's going to do, and the importance of what she's going to do because she's also doing it on a plan that we know is going to blow up. So it's a little bit like following Jor-El when we know Krypton's already going to die.
Right.
So where are you building in those layers of tension for the reader in your story?
Yeah. I mean, again, the main tension is what happens in episode one, which is the destruction of Thera. Now, I lead it up to the life that they have before, and the tension is within the secrets that I cannot share. That is the main tension, and it is kind of like, you know, I don't want to, spoil because it is hard, right? Once issue one comes out, it's a little easier to talk about what happens and why I made the choices that I did. But before anything happens, I really want people to give it a chance. I mean, like Declan already read the first issue and he loved it, and and it's not just because he's my friend, but because like he actually enjoyed the story. So I was like, okay, I want to give Cheetara a chance to like kind of shine, right? So
Hmm.
I want this to go, just have some faith in the book.
Um, are you allowed to share who some of the new characters could be that we may bump into in the first issue?
Um, some new characters that I made up for sure. Now, do they have a big role? Not really, but maybe. Depends on how you read it.
So when you say in the
We
first
can
issue,
talk about this again after it comes out. Then maybe it might have answered some
oh, I'm willing to
questions.
talk Thundercats whenever you want to talk Thundercats. I'd be more than happy to talk Thundercats. Um, Now is this a mini series? Is this an ongoing series? Is this a one shot?
5 issues miniseries.
And all the 5 issues already been plotted out?
Yeah,
So what can you hint at what readers can expect to see in these upcoming issues?
sure. Development, romance, action. I mean, I'm just naming all the most like typical like verbiage, but no, really, it's like developing a character who's not had a voice. And I want to give Cheetara her own story, to give her her own personality. And I find her to be kind of the hero behind the curtains, right? The
Hmm.
one who's like guiding the hero, who is Lino, right? Because he is a true, like, main character. But this is my story where she's the main character. And for me, I think Chitara has a bigger role to play of all the Thundercats than we've anticipated.
Hmm. Well,
And I mean, like, if you watch episode 1, she's like one of the first people who talks to Lionel. They have like a really like, like strong connection, and it's like, why? Why was that? Well, because she's a woman. Now that's too easy, right? She's the mom. Okay, cool, that's fine. But it's fun like creating a backstory and like and the reason, the rhyme and the reason for who she is and why she does what she does.
now this may be a spoiler, so once again, dance around if you wish. Um, was there a moment in either the cartoon or in Declan's series so
Hmm.
far with Shitara that helped you fully understand her character and kind of helped you maybe unlock the series?
I rewatched some of the cartoons. I watched like specific episodes on, Chitara. And it really gave me a good insight of what her personality is. Because she doesn't do much other than like, but when there are episodes highlighting her, she's really funny and like very sassy. Um, so I did kind of like hone in on those specific traits of hers and kind of like, but then also in my version, they're all younger, right? Like they're not kids, but they are definitely younger.
Yeah.
So that comes with the characters, right? The not being as um fine tuned, let's say.
Was it challenging to, because once again, Thundercats is a 1980s cartoon. 2024 is a very different world. Was it difficult to update her to make sense to this generation?
I hope it reads that way because I did. I wanted to make sure, as a woman, that I got the voice of a woman right, right? In the way that like it makes sense. And I'm not just doing things out of convenience because there is a backstory to her. Well, there's no backstory. I'm sorry. There is like an established thing about her. So that's easy. I can just, go with that. But I wanted to make sure there's something relatable with her and then
Mhm.
also something that just feels normal, right? And natural and not just like, she's the only female Thundercat, like main Thundercats like hero, and then woo, that's it. No, I want to be like her. The secret that that I talk about is one of the main reasons why she is the way she is, and she's very important. I think that it's just like, and I play into the fact that we don't talk about it or it hasn't been established in the cartoon. I play that up into this series.
So when is the first issue coming out?
July.
July.
I think it's the first week of July, but I you never know with like printing and everything, but it's definitely going to come out in July.
Now, you complete the 5 issues. Is there potential to have further spin-off Thundercats that you're working on, or what's next for you?
Nothing planned for me yet because I'm still actually needing to work on this. I'm on the tail end of it, but we'll see.
Well,
If people pick up one and they love it, it's it's all up to everyone else.
Well, Miss Lee, it was an absolute honor to speak with you. Thank you so much. I look forward to reading Thundercats Cheetara and come back when we can talk about the actual comic.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot.
All right, have a great night.
You too. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Versus Stars podcast. Please help me battle the algorithms by liking and subscribing. Be sure to turn for the next episode when the Lady Murray boards the mothership to discuss Sweet Tooth. The next voyage, travel on.